I'll talk a little bit about the Great Replacement. There's a Great Reset, also a Great Replacement. Two theories, supposedly conspiracy theories, but I'll just talk briefly about replacement, a Great Replacement. Whether you believe in the conspiratorial version, which usually places George Soros and others, people like him, from his background. The populations are replaced all the time. Um, I think David Ravix wrote an interesting thing. It was published in Counterpunch. He wrote an interesting blog. There is a sort of a kernel of truth towards this. A kernel of truth about this. Um, so we had a great replacement here in 1788, where the Aboriginals, all the different tribes, there's no one type of Aborigine. Don't listen to that. There are many different tribes, often at war, often fighting over water and resources, and also deep hatred of each other. Um, yeah, it wasn't a Rousseauian paradise here of the noble savage, so called. But the population was replaced by Anglo-Irish colonists, then Germans, then after that Italians, and then Asians. Various groups coming in and replacing the other ones. You'd go to, I mentioned Eastwood before, not a bad place, but the white population there, the Anglo-Irish mostly population, has been replaced mostly by Chinese, a few Vietnamese, Lidcombe. Lidcombe, it's been replaced by Koreans, and I'm a big fan of Koreans. I don't mind that. Maybe some replacements are good. Um, but to simply glibly dismiss this as nothing sort of doesn't really help the problem. I mean, replacements are a fact of life. The Russian Jews replaced the Arabs in Palestine. Most of them were Russians. A lot of those, probably a third of those, came, or nearly half, came in the 1990s after the dissolution of the Soviet Union. A lot of them had very weak connections to Jewishness. One grandparent was sufficient, 25%, and a lot of them weren't particularly religious, especially in the early days, and a lot of them after 1991. So there is a great replacement going on in Israel with the settlers, continuing to this day, and it's simply been a fact of life. So how can you dismiss a great replacement as a conspiracy theory, especially with large numbers of people? Uh, Merkel, I mentioned this in the blog, hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of people from Syria, Afghanistan, Sweden, with a lot of Somalis and Afghans. They're replacing the population. There is a deliberate policy of replacing the current population. So what's the conspiracy? Maybe George Soros is not articulating that. He's not behind that. Probably not. But and a certain group is blamed for that by neo-Nazis, and that's what they do. They blame everything on that group. Everything, literally everything. If you've been to the Unz Review, Ron Ontz, a Jewish man, rather unusual character, go to the comments and the articles there. It's monomaniacal. You'd have to describe it. So they blame you know who for everything. But I think you just have to engage with a serious reflection, and maybe some of those replacements aren't very good for the local population. In Europe, um, and maybe they're good in Australia, replacing Bronwyn Bishop and sort of Bogan types, Eastwood and Lidcombe, maybe white Australians. Koreans, uh, maybe a better model of citizen. So, but to just simply dismiss it as a conspiracy theory is completely wrong, and you're not engaging with maybe some of the social engineering problems that are at hand. And simply pretending that they're going to go away and you can just ban everybody that complains about it. That's not a real good plan. I think the Antifa people have to think of some way to engage with this on a serious note, or it could get out of hand.